Wendy's and Burger King both launched $5 value meals of their own.
In this, quote, war could actually be helpful for them, and it might actually help the entire fast food industry.
You have eaten fast food breakfast your whole life. The drive-thru before work, the hash browns nobody questions. These chains count on that autopilot, because looking closely at their kitchens, courtrooms, and supply chains changes everything. 7 chains earned a spot on the worst list. 3 proved a decent breakfast doesn't require rolling the dice. Let's start with the one caught selling a burger that wasn't the burger you saw on screen. Number 7. Burger King. Burger King's breakfast menu runs on the same marketing machine as the rest of its lineup. In 2025, a federal judge decided that machine had a real legal problem. 19 customers across 13 states sued the company. They argued its advertising photos showed burgers roughly a third larger and stuffed with more than double the meat compared to what actually landed on the tray. A Florida judge ruled the claims went beyond ordinary advertising exaggeration. The case was allowed to move forward toward trial. Burger King's defense was that every sandwich is hand-assembled, so of course the look varies. That argument might explain a slightly messy burger. It does not explain a photoshoot burger that is mathematically bigger than the one you're handed at the window. The lawsuit itself dates back to 2022. Burger King spent 2 years trying to get it thrown out. In 2023, it argued the case in a motion to dismiss, claiming every sandwich is handmade so the finished look will naturally differ from the ad. The court didn't buy that framing. The judge specifically noted the claims went beyond ordinary marketing exaggeration or puffery. That's the legal term for the kind of harmless hype every company is allowed to use. The case was allowed to proceed toward trial rather than getting tossed out early. Zoom out, and this isn't a one-off. Similar false advertising suits have hit Arby's, McDonald's, Taco Bell, and Wendy's. All for the exact same core complaint. All filed by the same law firm. All alleging the same gap between the burger in the commercial and the burger in the bag. That is not a coincidence limited to one marketing department. It's an industry-wide habit of styling food for the camera. A habit that quietly stopped being legal exaggeration and started being something closer to a promise the company never intended to keep. For millions of customers, those images shape expectations long before they ever place an order or see the real product. Those expectations are exactly what advertising is designed to create. That makes the gap between promise and reality far more significant today. When a company spends decades building a visual promise and a judge rules that promise might be legally false, that changes something. It changes how you should read every glossy photo of a croissant sandwich next time you order one. Burger King's public response has been straightforward. The company says the flame-grilled patties used in its advertising are the same ones served across its restaurants nationwide. Whether that's technically accurate or not, it doesn't address the actual complaint. The finished sandwich, styled, stacked, and lit for a commercial, bears little resemblance to what actually gets handed across the counter. To a paying customer holding up their end of the transaction. If a company willing to stretch the truth about a burger's size unsettles you, wait until you see what comes next. Inspectors found something far worse waiting behind the counter at chain number 6. Number 6. Dunkin. Dunkin built an empire on the idea that America runs on it. What inspectors have repeatedly found running through some of its stores tells a different story. In one widely reported case, a Dunkin location was ordered shut down. Inspectors documented live roach activity, dead roaches in the dry storage area, and an employee handling ready-to-eat food bare-handed without properly cooking or reheating it first. The report noted several of these were repeat violations, meaning the same problems had already been flagged and not fixed. Repeated violations often concern inspectors more than first-time mistakes, because they can indicate deeper management failures instead of isolated oversights. This is not an isolated donut shop. Dunkin operates thousands of franchise locations. The franchise model means the corporate sets the brand standard while individual owners control day-to-day sanitation. That gap is exactly where repeat violations like these slip through. Quietly, store by store, while the national marketing keeps humming along uninterrupted. Local health departments across the country routinely publish the same story in different cities. a location cited, given a short window to fix the problem. Returning to the same violation months or years later because nothing structurally changed in between. For customers, those inspection reports are public records, yet most people never think to read them before placing an order. That inspection also flagged no certified food safety manager on duty during a shift with 4 or more employees handling food. A basic staffing requirement that exists precisely so someone in the building is responsible for catching problems like the ones inspectors found. Roaches near a donut case and hash browns is not a minor cosmetic issue. It is a direct pathway for contamination. It's exactly the kind of grab-and-go breakfast spot where you trust the chain to have already handled the food safety thinking for you. Before you ever walk in, you expect those standards to be in place. If this is the kind of thing you want to know before your next drive-thru order, hit subscribe right now, because chain number 5 is about to make you think twice. You may never look at your hash browns the same way again. Number 5. Waffle House. A Grove. City, Ohio customer bit into his hash browns, smothered and covered. He spat out a human tooth that was not his own. He and his friend were regulars. This was not their first plate of hash browns at that location, and it will likely be their last. County inspection records showed that same restaurant had been cited weeks earlier for improper hand washing and a dishwasher that wasn't reaching the required sanitizing temperature. That single incident sits inside a much wider pattern. Waffle House locations across multiple states have racked up citations for repeat violations. Cigarette butts and trash, accumulating near back doors with gaps wide enough for pests to enter. Cooks cracking raw eggs and touching clean plates without washing hands in between. Rust buildup inside food storage cabinets. A Georgia location scored 54 out of 100 on a routine inspection, low enough to trigger a mandatory follow-up visit within days. A Charlotte, North Carolina location received a second consecutive B grade. Inspectors documented very little hand washing overall. Cooks wiped their hands on their faces and clothes after cracking eggs instead of washing them. A moldy head of lettuce sitting inside the walk-in cooler. Tomatoes stored above safe holding temperature. Under that state's own grading rules, a score below 70% results in an immediate permit revocation. Meaning these locations were operating close to the legal line for staying open at all. Waffle House runs on speed and familiarity. Cooks working an open grill a few feet from your booth, plates moving fast around the clock. That same open, fast, always-on model is precisely what makes consistent sanitation harder to enforce. Shift after shift, location after location, at 3 in the morning as much as at 8. If a stray tooth in your hash browns doesn't put you off your morning coffee, the next chain has a body count attached to its breakfast meat that reshaped American food safety law. Number 4. Jack in the Box. In the early 1990s, Jack in the Box became the reason food safety inspectors across the country changed how they measure a properly cooked burger patty. Company documents later obtained by attorneys showed something troubling. Months before an E. coli outbreak sickened hundreds of people and killed several children, some county health departments had already notified Jack in the Box, then operating under parent company Food Maker, about a new state-mandated cooking temperature. Internal reviews reportedly followed. The higher standard was not fully implemented before the outbreak hit. Children died. The Food Maker settled lawsuits with multiple families, including the families of 2 young Washington state children whose names are still cited in food safety litigation today, alongside a 13-year-old who was also among those sickened. The case became the textbook example used in food safety training for the next 3 decades, cited anytime regulators explain why minimum internal cooking temperatures for ground beef exist at all. Court records from the period describe internal company communications and test results. Plaintiffs' attorneys argued these showed warning signs were available before the outbreak spread as far as it did. None of that history is a breakfast menu story on its own, but that chain is built on the same corporate cooking and supply infrastructure. It produced one of the deadliest foodborne illness outbreaks in modern American history and still carries that legacy forward. Into every sandwich it serves today, hash brown and breakfast jack included, whether customers remember the name Food Maker or not. Decades later, the chain still faces periodic E. coli litigation and franchise disputes over operational practices. The outbreak itself is history, What it left behind is the reason every fast food patty you eat today, breakfast sausage included, is legally required to hit a specific internal temperature before it's allowed to reach your tray. You're safer because of what happened. That doesn't mean the company that caused it earns a pass. More recent litigation has kept the chain's name attached to foodborne illness claims. Separate franchise disputes have surfaced allegations about how aggressively the company protects its own bottom line over the health of the businesses that carry its name on the sign outside. History doesn't repeat itself exactly, but a company whose worst chapter was written by cutting a corner on temperature is a company worth watching closely every time it's tempted to cut one again. Now, if a chain's history with undercooked meat troubles you, the next one just got sued over what's hiding in your morning coffee cup, and it isn't sugar. If you're finding this breakdown eye-opening, tap that like button right now before we get to the coffee chain nobody expected to be on this list. Number 3. Starbucks. Starbucks built its entire identity on being the ethical, transparent alternative to fast food. In January 2026, a class action lawsuit challenged that image directly. Independent testing commissioned by the plaintiff's law firm reportedly detected benzene, toluene, and methylene chloride in Starbucks' decaf house blend. Volatile organic compounds, the lawsuit says, have no business being anywhere near food production. Starbucks disputes the claims and says it stands behind its coffee's safety. The same lawsuit goes further. It alleges that farms certified under Starbucks' own ethical sourcing program have repeatedly been tied to labor abuses and degrading working conditions. Conditions investigators and human rights monitors documented over the years. Despite the company's public commitment to fully ethical sourcing, the filing claims that when Starbucks was confronted with detailed evidence of abuse at certified farms, the company slow-walked or withheld decertification. It kept sourcing from the same suppliers rather than acting on what it had been shown. Starbucks maintains it audits its supply chain regularly and cuts ties with suppliers when violations are confirmed. The company has called the allegations inaccurate. This isn't Starbucks' first brush with food-adjacent litigation either. The company has separately faced suits over recalled oat milk contaminated with bacteria sold through its stores, and over scalding beverages served without adequate warning. No single case defines the brand, but a pattern of lawsuits questioning the actual contents of the cup and the actual conditions behind the label is worth noticing, especially in a company that has spent decades marketing itself as the conscientious choice. None of these allegations have been proven in court yet, but the gap between the story on the bag, 100% ethical, farmer-friendly, carefully audited, and the questions now being raised in federal court is significant. It's exactly the kind of gap that should make you pause before your next drive-thru order of a bacon breakfast sandwich and a decaf latte. The next chain's morning drink didn't just raise questions, it ended up connected to actual deaths, and the company kept selling it anyway. Number 2. Panera Bread. Panera positioned its charged lemonade as a clean, plant-based drink, sitting casually next to the unsweetened iced tea. What it actually contained was up to 390 milligrams of caffeine in a large size, just under the FDA's full daily limit for a healthy adult. Mixed with guarana, a second stimulant, and served self-serve alongside drinks with a fraction of that caffeine. A 21-year-old University of Pennsylvania student with a heart condition died after drinking one and suffering cardiac arrest. A 46-year-old Florida man with a chromosomal disorder and high blood pressure died after drinking 3 over 2 weeks. 2 more people, previously healthy, filed suit describing permanent cardiac injuries after drinking the beverage. Together, those cases drew nationwide attention to how consumers often judge a drink by its appearance rather than its stimulant content. All 4 lawsuits were eventually settled. The later 3 were dismissed with prejudice as part of that resolution. Panera has denied wrongdoing throughout. After the first death, Panera moved the drink behind the counter. It added warning signage recommending against consumption by children, pregnant or nursing women, and anyone sensitive to caffeine. It did not pull the product from shelves nationwide until May 2024. 7 months after the first wrongful death suit was already filed. The company described that removal as part of a routine menu transformation rather than a safety response. For comparison, Industry labeling guidelines from the American Beverage Association call for that exact kind of warning language on high caffeine drinks. Guidance Panera wasn't formally bound by, since neither the company nor its parent organization belongs to that association. Even so, the controversy sparked broader conversations about whether voluntary industry standards provide enough protection when products contain unusually high caffeine levels. A drink strong enough to be linked to multiple deaths sitting next to the unsweetened tea, marketed as clean, is not a small labeling oversight. It's the reason you should read every natural and plant-based claim on a fast food beverage board with real skepticism from now on. The chain at number 1 didn't just have a bad batch. It had an outbreak, a hospitalization count, and a lawsuit over your orange juice, all in the same 12 months. Number 1. McDonald's. McDonald's breakfast menu is the most recognized in the world. 2024 through 2025 gave it a run of documented problems that a company this size usually manages to keep quiet. Start with the quarter-pounder E. coli outbreak in October 2024. It hit the dinner menu, not breakfast, but it forced McDonald's into a nationwide supply chain investigation and exposed exactly how fragile its produce sourcing was. 75 confirmed cases, 22 hospitalizations, and 1 death, all traced back to slivered onions from a single supplier. Multiple class action lawsuits followed, arguing the company knew the risk and failed to warn customers. Then came the breakfast-specific case. A Texas woman sued in Manhattan Supreme Court. She alleged a sausage McMuffin with egg she bought at a Times Square location left her violently ill and caused lasting damage to her physical and mental health. The complaint describes the sandwich as contaminated with bacteria, germs, and other harmful substances and unfit for human consumption. No court has ruled on the merits yet, and McDonald's has not been found liable. But a company that serves millions of that exact sandwich every single day is now defending its safety in open court. It isn't the only recent complaint involving a New York franchise. A separate 2025 lawsuit accused a Staten Island location of serving a burger containing a clump of hair and a piece of metal. The complaint alleges the kitchen was short-staffed and undertrained. And then there's the orange juice. A class action filed in 2024 alleges McDonald's advertises its breakfast combos with a photo of orange juice included at one price, then quietly adds a surcharge the moment a customer actually picks it, with no asterisk or notice on the menu board warning them first. An outbreak with a death attached, an active lawsuit over a flagship breakfast sandwich, and a deceptive pricing complaint over your morning juice, all stacked in the same short window, is not a coincidence. It's a pattern from a company operating at a scale where a small failure in one supplier or one franchise becomes a national headline overnight. 3 chains earned a different kind of list. Not because they're flawless, but because what they publish, source, and fix looks meaningfully different from everything above. None of these 3 has been named in a wrongful death lawsuit, an outbreak investigation, or a false advertising ruling in the last several years. Number 3. First Watch. First Watch has used cage-free eggs across its restaurants since 2015. Years before cage-free became a marketing buzzword, the rest of the industry scrambled to copy. That's a full decade of a specific, verifiable sourcing commitment, not a headline announced the week a lawsuit dropped. The chain built its identity around daytime, made-to-order cooking rather than a fryer and freezer assembly line. It publishes that sourcing philosophy openly rather than burying it in a footnote. That approach fits the brand's larger message of fresh breakfast and brunch prepared to order, instead of relying heavily on pre-made components shipped in from a central facility. A former line cook at a First Watch location once described the rule simply: an egg that sits too long on the line gets tossed out, not plated and sent to a table. While that's one employee's account rather than a company-wide guarantee, it aligns with the emphasis the chain places on freshness. The honest caveat: the chain has noted it may temporarily source conventional eggs during supply disruptions like avian flu outbreaks. A real-world caveat rather than a hidden loophole. That kind of disclosure, naming the exact condition under which the standard might slip, is precisely the difference. The difference between a company being transparent about a limitation and a company hoping nobody checks. First Watch also publishes its animal welfare policy on its own investor site, not tucked into a press kit nobody reads. That's a detail worth checking yourself the next time you're standing at the counter deciding where breakfast comes from. First Watch lands at 3 because a decade-old publicly documented standard beats a same-week press release every time. Number 2. Cracker Barrel. Cracker Barrel sources nearly all of its pork, poultry, and roughly 99% of its beef domestically. It requires its suppliers to meet standards set by recognized organizations covering animal welfare and dairy management practices. Those requirements help create more consistent expectations across different farms and processing facilities, rather than leaving every supplier to follow its own standards. The chain is also mid-transition toward a fully cage-free egg supply, targeting completion by the end of 2026. That public target gives customers a clear timeline to measure, instead of an open-ended commitment that could quietly stretch on for years. Its breakfast menu still leans on made-to-order eggs, custom omelets, and quiches cooked in-house rather than reheated from a freezer bag. Preparing those items fresh takes more time, but it also reflects a greater emphasis on food prepared to order, instead of relying entirely on pre-packaged shortcuts. Its syrup blend is also formulated without artificial ingredients or preservatives. A small detail, but one more specific commitment than most competitors bother publishing at all. One regional supplier who works closely with the dairy program has described how audits happen. They happen on a fixed, recurring schedule, not just after something has already gone wrong. That's a meaningful difference from chains that only inspect a farm once a lawsuit is already filed. Routine inspections are never a guarantee that every problem will be prevented, but they do increase the chances of identifying issues before they become large-scale failures affecting thousands of customers. The honest caveat: that cage-free transition isn't finished yet. A company this size inevitably has inconsistent locations from one highway exit to the next. But a chain that publishes specific sourcing percentages and concrete deadlines is playing a fundamentally different game. Those figures allow customers, watchdog groups, and industry analysts to compare promises against actual progress instead of relying only on polished marketing language. Most of the names on the worst list rely on vague, unverifiable promises instead. Cracker Barrel also lists its animal welfare policy update history publicly. You can see exactly when a standard changed and why, rather than taking a single line on faith. That kind of time-stamped record is what a courtroom filing usually has to force out of a competitor. Number 1. Whataburger. Whataburger cracks and cooks its eggs fresh in-store for its taquitos and breakfast plates. Instead of reheating pre-formed frozen egg patties, the shortcut most major chains rely on. It also runs the longest breakfast window in fast food, serving breakfast items nearly around the clock, roughly from 11 p.m. to 11 a.m. daily. A schedule built around real shift workers and late-night customers rather than a corporate convenience. Founded in 1950 in Corpus Christi, Texas, the chain has held onto a made-to-order philosophy across its core menu. That philosophy extends fully into breakfast rather than stopping at the dinner items. A longtime franchise manager once put it plainly: the grill ticket for a breakfast plate looks almost identical to the one from decades ago, eggs cracked to order, not pulled from a bag. The honest caveat: rapid franchise expansion in recent years has introduced real regional inconsistency. From roughly 824 locations in 2018 to more than 980 by 2025, independent quality reviews have scored longtime Texas locations noticeably higher than newer markets like Alabama and Missouri, where staff are still climbing the same learning curve the original stores worked through decades ago. But a family-founded chain still cracking real eggs in front of you is worth noticing. It is exactly the kind of model worth rewarding with your money, rather than one hiding behind a reheated patty and a loyalty app. Its supplier relationships for eggs and produce are also disclosed on request rather than treated as a trade secret. That's more than most fast food chains are willing to offer. Look back at what actually separates the two lists. It isn't expensive. It isn't portion size. It isn't even how the food tastes going down. It's whether a company tells you the truth about what's in front of you before you order it. and whether it fixes a problem the first time an inspector or a lawsuit points it out, instead of the third or fourth time. The worst 7 kept the marketing running while the courtrooms and the health department reports quietly piled up behind it. The safer 3 published their standards, named their suppliers, and put the specifics in writing where you could actually go check them. That's the real test worth applying tomorrow morning. Not which drive-thru is fastest, but which one has actually earned the trust it's asking you for. 7 chains counted on your morning routine being too automatic to question. Hey, thanks for watching. Click on the video popping up on your left right now. Drop a comment with which one surprised you most. And if this changed how you look at your drive-thru order, share it with whoever needs to see it before tomorrow morning. We will see you in the next video.